Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or as we like to say here at Shady Acres Woodshop, howdy. Today I have a piece of Cherry Plum. This comes to us from Tuffy Marginez. Jeff sent this along with some other pieces of wood, almost like a box filler. I don't know if he expected me to do anything with it or not, but I'm going to. This is roughly 8 inches from this point to this point, about 5 inches wide. And it'll end up being about 2 inches thick. Right now it's about 3 inches thick. And I kind of kicked around, how am I going to turn this? I thought about making this the top because it would have a natural bark edge all the way around it, except for over here. And that would be okay. And that would be the simplest way to do this. But we're not into simple, we're into nature. So I want as much of this beautiful bark. I just love this stuff. I want as much of that to stick with us as I can, but you can see it's an odd shape. So what I'm going to do is take this over to the bandsaw and I'm going to put the flat part up against my fence. And I'm just going to cut this off, kind of even with the top of this little knob sitting here. I'm just going to cut that off. And that'll give me a flat place to drill a hole for my woodworm screw. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll bring you back in a few minutes when I have that all cut and mounted up on the lathe, and we'll get to turning. We'll be turning at 700 RPM, 5/8 inch bowl gouge, mask and face shield on. I think we're going to go with a recess on this piece, and I don't really need the tailstock here at all anyway. I've got a really tight hold with the woodworm screw, so I'm just going to get that out of the way. Now we'll just flatten the bottom off. What I'm going to do is touch this point to the wood, and if this point lines up with the scratch that this makes, then we know we're centered. See, it's just a little bit outside of it, so I'm going to move inside just a touch. That was just a touch too much. There we go. Then that gives us the diameter of our recess. I could mark that with a pencil to be a little clearer. And I'm just going to take my dovetail recess tool. And you don't need it very deep. Actually, I went probably a little deeper than I needed to. You only need about 1/8 of an inch. Now we need some kind of a base for it to set on. We're ready for sanding. I'm going to start the sanding with my Sandoflex with the lathe in reverse so that it's going that way and the Sandoflex is coming down against it. And I just want to clean up the bark around this edge and this area here. So let me get my mask on. I'll show you how that's going to work. And after that, then I'll just switch to a normal 2-inch sanding disc and do the rest of this. And then because this is kind of a dip here, I'm just gonna that really doesn't change the bark any. It just smooths it out so it's not quite so rough and cleans it up a little bit. And then, like I said, well, then we'll switch to the 2-inch. Still sanding in reverse. So the Sander Flex was 180 grit, and that's as fine as I'll go on the bark. This is 80 grit, and I'll sand up through 400. And I'll bring you back when it's time to put some finish on here, which I think is going to be the feed and wax. See you in a bit. Well, that was a quick and easy sanding job for a change. I appreciate that. I am going with the Howard feed and wax. I'm not sure I've ever used it on Cherry Plum before. That's part of the reason I'm trying it. Now, I don't usually use a tenon, a recess. I usually use a tenon. And because I always forget and finish the inside of this recess at this point, I'm trying real hard not to do that, because that keeps me from signing it. I can't sign over the wax. So don't let me slip and get inside there, okay? Isn't that beautiful grain? That is just gorgeous. Just gorgeous. Then I'm going to get a little brush and get some of the bark areas here. And to do that, I just take this little acid brush. You can get these all over the place, real cheap. And just dip my brush in the bottle. And I won't finish way up in there because some of it's going to be gone. Sometimes it's fun to do these little projects, huh? Instead of the big hard ones. Kind of a nice change. And I'm going to take just a second to thank some of my viewers. Well, thank you to all my viewers. Thank you for being a viewer. Holy cow. Whoever expected an old guy like me to have any viewers. I'm really quite pleasantly surprised, I'll tell you. Anyway, several of my viewers have reached out to send me some wood. I just cannot express how grateful I am for that. Take this piece right here from Tuffy. He sent me a few pieces of this, and he knows that I like it. And I've never even heard of Cherry Plum. Doesn't grow around here as far as I know. So I get these opportunities to turn wood that I just wouldn't have the opportunity otherwise. I know there's lots of wood available in lots of parts of the country. I'll tell you what, they're just not available here. About anything that's relatively common around here as far as the hardwood goes would be maple. And I love maple, but you know, you can only turn so much of it before you get to where you don't love maple anymore, and I don't want to get to that point. So it's just so nice. It's wonderful. So I'm just incredibly fortunate, and thank you all for your consideration when you're wanting to move some of the wood out of your way and move it my way. Well, I think that's going to do it. I'll give it one last little wipe here I'll let this set up for about 20 minutes, come back out and buff it, and then it'll be time to turn it around and work on the inside. Looking forward to that. I just don't know what's going to happen on the top side here. There's so much going on, but we'll figure it out. Look at that. My gosh. That is just gorgeous. See you in a bit. As you probably know, I'm very interested in keeping this part over here. I really like that. So what I did is I took a pencil and just held this like that and just made a mark to help me avoid cutting into that. So when it's spinning, I can pretty well see it right here. Yeah, I can see that. So we're going to be turning at 1400 RPM with a 1/2 inch standard grind ball gouge all sharpened up. Mask and face shield on. I'm not used to working with recesses, which of course come up into the bottom. So I'm going to try and get in here to measure this. And I'm about 3/8 of an inch. So we're just about there. Maybe I'll scrape that now before I get all the way in there. I'm going to use a 1-inch negative rake scraper. See how we did? I'm so close to touching this. It's just right there. Yep, that's good. Time for sanding. I'm going to start the sanding with my Sandoflex from the inside out to kind of ease this edge along here and finish up the sanding the bark that I couldn't get from the other side. So let me get my mask on. I'll show you how that's going to work. We'll have the lathe spinning at about 350 RPM. And that's doing just what I need it to do. That's good. Then I'll just switch to my 2-inch sanding disc. This might be a little more problematic. I really don't want to be sanding on here, but I probably can't avoid it. Well, actually, that's not too bad. I thought it'd be worse than that. I probably will end up sanding a little bit of this, but hopefully I won't sand through the bark. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next hour or so. I did just notice this crack, an internal crack here, and I looked on the outside and there's nothing that matches it. So I guess that's what they call wind shake, or maybe a stress crack, I don't know. But it's only on the inside. Doesn't look like it goes very deep. I don't think it's a problem, but it probably is not going to go away with sanding. So, see you back here in a bit when it's time to put some finish on there. And the feed and wax finish. Now this flat piece right here, I sanded that up ever so lightly, but I left some of the texture from the saw cuts as I like to do when I can. Just to show the history of the piece. I did sand it. I sanded with 180 and then 240 and then stopped. I didn't try and remove everything. I just smoothed it out. And you can probably see some of the texture in there. It still feels good. No one's going to get hurt on it. Just shows some of the history. And I just think that's interesting. This did sand up real nice. And then what I do after this dries, because I can't actually buff the bark like I do the finished turn part, I just take a clean toothbrush and buff it out of there that way. Buff it out of the crevices of the bark. And that kind of leaves a little shine to it. Not a lot, a little. The color of this bark, where it's turned here and where it's not turned, it just makes such a wonderful contrast with the color of the wood. And the wood itself is quite wonderful, of course. Okay, I'll see you back here in just a little while. Don't go anywhere. Well, there it is, one cherry plum dish in the books. This is just absolutely flawless. No tool marks, no torn grain. It's just beautiful. There's my roughish edge. I think that only adds to it. I thought I wasn't going to like that as being part of it, but I like it quite a little bit. And I did not remove the recess. Reason being, it's so shallow. It's only about 1/16 of an inch deep. And my rim wasn't all that wide. I thought it was wider than that. All I would have done to remove it is round over this inside edge. Just round it over, just make it go away. That's about all you can do. And that's what I would have done, but it just didn't need to be done, so I didn't do it. Don't you just love that bark? Oh my gosh. In contrast with the beautiful wood, it's like it's a perfect little piece. And it is little. It's 6 inches by 5 inches by 1 7/8 inches tall. That's all it is. Fit in the palm of your hand. It's just a little cutie. I really like it. Thank you, Tuffy Marginez, for sending this to us. Really appreciate it, buddy. If you like this video, thumbs up please. I'd sure appreciate it. If you're a subscriber, thank you very kindly. I truly appreciate that. If you're not a subscriber, you might consider becoming one. I put out regular videos, about one a week, and I'd like to keep in touch. Your comments are always welcome, and I respond to all of them. So for now, this is Phil, Shady Acres Woodshop, signing off.